Okay, in this lecture we're going to learn about percent to decimal notation. We're going to start off with something nice where we have 50%, and we don't want to write this as a percentage. Instead, we would prefer to write it as a decimal. Now, what we have to think about is what percent really means. Percent. So when we see the word percent, our brains are going to think this means times 100. And sorry about my multiplication sign. Here's the multiplication sign, and this is the decimal. So when we take 50%, we're going to take 50 and times it by 100. Well, 1 times anything is still the same thing, and now we count the number of decimal places involved. We have 2 places, so we have to move over 2. And when we write 50% as a decimal, we have 0.50. Or you could just write 0.5 because the 0 at the end is no longer significant. Since it always works out that we're multiplying by 100th, we'll multiply by 1, it doesn't change anything, and we just have to count the decimal places, which will always be 2. We can just take a percent and directly translate it. Let's say, for example, we have 33%. And we can change it straight to a decimal by taking the decimal point and moving it over 2 places. If we have a whole number, the decimal point is always at the end of it. So when we move over 2, we now have 0.33 is our decimal from the percent. This gets a little bit more challenging when students have a percentage that isn't always 2 digits. Like let's say we have 5%. It's still the same scenario where the decimal point is at the end of the whole number, and you have to move it over 2 places. And when there's no digit here, we got to fill in a placeholder, so we have 0.05. The 0 is going to be our placeholder inside. If we have a number where it's over 100%, that also sometimes baffles students. Let's say we have 625%. It's still a whole number, so the decimal point is at the end of it, and we have to move over 2 places. It's always 2 because of percent and what it means. So now we have 6.25 is the decimal representation of 625%. If we are given already a decimal inside the percent, we're just going to have to move from that place. So let's say, for example, we have 82.71%. We find the decimal point. It's already there for us because this is not a whole number. It's a whole number with a little bit of a decimal at the end. And we move it over 2 places still. It's always 2 places. So now we have 0.8271 is the decimal representation of the percent. So that is all for moving from a percent to a decimal.